After more than 25,000 kilometers through scorching deserts, rugged mountains, and bone-rattling back roads, my KOGA WorldTraveller hasn't just made it through, it's conquered every road in its path. This bike is built like a tank, but rides like a dream. It's got a super low maintenance belt drive, a rear wheel that houses all 14 speeds, and the bike even generates its own power to charge my phone while I ride. Not only that, but the extra wide tyres float over sand and corrugated roads. And the hidden suspension helps smooth out the rough surfaces. This is likely one of the most purpose-built bicycles ever made, designed to fit the ultra-specific demands of a global bike journey. In this video, we're going bumper to bumper on every aspect of this bike, from the indestructible frame design to the cutting-edge touring components and all of the custom touches I've added along the way. Even if you're not into bikes or long-distance travel, I think the tech alone is worth a look. That said, there is one major drawback, and we'll get to that later in the video. Just so you know, KOGA sponsors me to test their bikes on my multi-year expeditions. This isn't a paid review, they've had no input, and they don't even know I'm making this video. But I'll try my best to keep things objective anyway. For 2 years, I've been riding this bike to its limits across Africa's most demanding roads, including routes through remote wilderness areas, hauling 1 week's food and up to 20 litres of water. Most touring bikes would feel unnerving with such a heavy load, but the WorldTraveller's frame remains rock solid, never twisting or wobbling beneath me. It's incredibly confidence-inspiring, with stable, predictive handling even when fully loaded and bouncing down rough four-wheel drive tracks. The frame stiffness is the result of some cutting-edge manufacturing techniques. Built inside the frame downtube is a series of torsion chambers which make the frame extra resistant to twisting. The torsion chambers are actually a technology developed for e-bikes, as bike designers needed a way to create a stiff downtube while having a big opening for a battery. At the rear, both chainstays are 3D forged from a single piece of metal, for extra strength and stiffness. Even the front fork is a one-piece forged component, giving it a chunky carbon fibre look. And based on my research, this is the first production bike that uses this technology. The rear rack, with its subframe, totally removes side-to-side sway, which is especially noticeable when hauling heavy loads. Until I switched to this rack system, I had no idea how much regular bike racks flexed side to side. I always assumed the flex was from the frame itself. There are also these cool pannier clip holders that lock the bags on the rails and prevent them from sliding about. The frame's welds are so seamless and the paint so glossy that many assume my bike is made with carbon fibre. I also have to highlight how durable the powder coat paint is on KOGA bikes. After 2 years of beating this bike up in Africa, this ochre yellow bike still looks good as new. Another thoughtful feature is the integrated steering limiter. This is important when parking a loaded bike, as it will otherwise topple over should the wheel twist too far. There is also internal cable routing throughout, using full-length cable outers. This not only looks good, but ensures grit doesn't get inside the cables, and it stops any rattling on rough roads. The frame and all the components attached to this bike are engineered to support over 180 kilograms total weight, which is one reason why this bike is so unbreakable. The bike's roll-off 14-speed internal gear hub is a total game changer, keeping the gears sealed away from the dust, sand, and moisture. I've now logged over 170,000 kilometers with roll-off hubs and can vouch for their reliability and near-zero maintenance. The roll-off offers a very low climbing gear ratio, just 16 gear inches, for tackling steep terrain. This is lower than most touring bikes and allows me to cycle uphill at walking speed
without having to get off and push.
Unlike traditional derailleurs, roll-off hubs aren't susceptible to damage. They experience less wear and don't require gear adjustments.
They have a wider gear range than a 1x drivetrain, and you can change gears without pedaling, which makes it easier to start from stationary.
Roll-offs are also proven to be more efficient than other gearboxes or internal gear hubs, with only 3 to 4% of your pedal power lost to drag.
Removing the rear wheel is very straightforward. I just unscrew the shift box here, remove the 2 rear axle bolts, and the wheel drops straight out.
The only maintenance is an oil change every 6 months or so. I use a belt drive on this bike. I've been using belts for over a decade and love that they're virtually maintenance-free and very long-lasting.
My first set of belt sprockets lasted 20,000 kilometers on this bike, which is noticeably less than the 30,000 kilometers I've managed on other continents.
But the abrasive, sandy roads in Africa definitely seem to speed up the wear.
Also, I carry a spare belt which coils up like this, and I store it in my panniers.
In terms of belt tension, it's super easy to adjust via these hidden bolts in the sliding dropouts. The Sun Dynamo hub generates electricity that powers both my lights and the hidden USB port near the handlebars. The entire charging unit lives inside my steerer tube, and I use it every day, even when it's hilly. It's actually one of the most powerful chargers available. At 20 kilometers per hour, it delivers about 5 watts, or enough to charge a smartphone in a few hours. And when I slow down or stop, a built-in buffer battery inside the steerer tube ensures completely uninterrupted charging.
The only problem with this charger is that it's not waterproof, so I don't use it at all when it's raining. Instead, I put this little silicone cover on the top to protect it from water.
The Sun Dynamo lights are a nice addition to the bike, as they are permanently attached with no batteries to worry about. The wires run internally inside the frame and fork, and the front beam pattern has a cutoff, meaning it won't blind oncoming traffic.
When they're on, these lights wipe about 0.5 kilometer per hour from my speed on a flat road, which I think's a really good deal.
In comparison, the new wave of ultra-bright Dynamo lights would slow me down by 1 to 1.5 kilometers per hour.
My handlebars are wide and offer enough leverage to make steering effortless. And my grip sections are swept back by 25 degrees for wrist comfort and an upright riding posture.
I previously used a handlebar designed to my every specification, but since I fitted some aero bars, the bullhorn hand positions became redundant. The biggest benefit to aero bars is the new riding position, shifting my body weight onto my elbows and reducing fatigue in my hands, arms, and back.
An added benefit is the aerodynamic gain. I've measured this riding position to increase my speed by 10 to 15%.
That either means covering more ground in a day or arriving at my destination with less muscle fatigue. These aero bars are quick to detach thanks to the quick-release levers, and my decade-old navigation phone is mounted high and in the middle of my aero bars using the quad lock system.
I've also rigged up a 360 camera mount at the top of my aero bars using a mix of random components, and it's fully reinforced with trusty zip ties. This is the strongest mount I've been able to create for off-road riding, and I think it creates some really cool travel footage.
The Wolftooth lock-ons with ESI silicone grips over the top are great for vibration damping and comfort. They have metal rings on the sides, which make them difficult to tear, unlike most silicone grips I've toured with.
Another comfort gem is the Vecnum Frequency Suspension Stem.
It smooths out the rough roads I ride. In fact, we've tested it and found 10 to 12% fewer handlebar vibrations compared to a standard rigid stem.
It's the same story at the back of the bike. The Redshift Shockstop Pro Endurance seat post has 35mm of hidden suspension, and it damps 20 to 30% more vibrations than a rigid seat post.
The secret to its performance is the combination of elastomer and coil springs, which makes it reactive without being too bouncy. This seat post lets me stay seated over rough terrain, soaking up the big impacts and saving my back from taking a beating.
One interesting modification I've made is the Drop Best UC seat post clamp, which moves the saddle 20mm further forward, effectively steepening the seat tube angle of my bike.
It may look a bit unusual, but since suspension seat posts move the saddle rearward under compression, this adjustment helps keep me from ending up too far behind the bottom bracket. This seat clamp not only improves my climbing position, but it keeps my hip angle open when I use the aero bars. My saddle of choice is the Sala Italia Sport Gel Flow, which has a shape that suits me perfectly. It's cushioned enough that I never need padded shorts, yet firm enough to prevent any chafing.
You'll notice that I tilt my saddle down slightly. This is because the rear of the seat is so soft that it effectively flattens out as soon as I sit on it.
Wheels are usually a weak link on long tours, but my Rival 27.5-inch wheels have been rock solid. No broken spokes or even a retensioning needed. This is possible thanks to the thick and stiff rims and 36 spokes per wheel. The rims also have angled drilling, which means the spoke holes are angled in the same direction as the spokes. This places less stress on the ends of each spoke, resulting in fewer spoke breakages. I run 2.8-inch wide Schwalbe G1 tyres, and believe it or not a single puncture in over 2 years. The Kevlar liner under the tread and tubeless sealant make punctures a thing of the past. Tubeless sealant sloshes around inside my tyres, so when I get a hole, it rushes in and seals it up.
I typically add sealant every 4 months and have found that Stan's or Orange Seal works best, and the lab data backs that up.
I've found 2.8 inches is the perfect width for the African backroads, as my tyres can deform over the rough terrain, keeping me comfortable. Importantly, I can reduce the pressure to under 10 psi and float over sand.
And despite their width, G1s are not slow rolling at all.
My average speed is almost the same as with narrower tyres I've used, as it's the rubber compound and sidewall design that are most important at touring speeds.
In terms of durability, I usually get 7,000 to 8,000 kilometers out of a set of tyres, with a tyre swap from the rear to the front at about 5,000 kilometers.
To keep things clean, I use full fenders, which take an absolute beating. The fork has upper and lower mounts for perfect fender lines, but I've found that mounting the fenders with extra clearance sheds the mud much better. I've been travelling the world with Shimano XT hydraulic disc brakes for about a decade, and they've never let me down. The big 203mm rotors and 4-piston calipers stop my fully loaded bike with ease. They also have these super long lever blades that provide more caliper force for a given finger force.
A neat little tip is this Kickstand brake band. So when I park my bike on a hill, I can attach it to the brake lever and my bike won't roll backward.
I recently switched from clip-in pedals to flats, which might seem like a step back in performance. But at steady cruising speeds, flat pedals can be just as efficient, so long as you're using large platforms with long pins and shoes with grippy soles.
Clip-ins mainly have the advantage during intense efforts or sprints. But since I'm mostly just cruising, I don't feel like I'm missing out on much.
I've found that Bedrock sandals offer more grip than most other shoes. Only serious flat pedal shoes like 510s can perform better. It ultimately comes down to the rubber compound of the sole. As for the pedals, the Deity Def Traps have been incredibly tough and long-lasting. To keep my bike upright, I use a Pletcher kickstand, a lightweight accessory that makes my life notably easier. Whether I'm grabbing a snack, snapping a photo, or loading my bags, it's always there when I need it. And at just 300 grams, its weight to functionality ratio is super hard to beat. When we take in the design, this bike is clearly set up perfectly for my global cycling adventures. So, what's the catch? This bike weighs 21 kilograms or 46 pounds without luggage, which is heavier than many e-bikes. But here's the thing, I don't mind. The extra weight gives me peace of mind, knowing it's strong enough to handle anything. Plus, it's important to remember that the bike's weight is just a small percentage of the total.
After all, I weigh 80 kilograms and my gear, food and water are sometimes 30 kilograms. A heavy bike might tip the balance by a couple percent, but it makes no meaningful difference to my average cycling speeds.
One drawback is that the rear rack is KOGA specific, and it's made from aluminium. If KOGA ever stops making them, and I need a replacement down the line, which is possible since aluminium isn't particularly abrasion resistant, I might be stuck having to get one custom made.
Another downside is the price. You can piece together a tough touring bike for much less.
But for me, a bike like this is a long-term investment. I ride these things through some of the most remote places on Earth, and I just don't want to have to think about whether my frame or components will break, or when I next need to maintain something.
Ultimately, the KOGA WorldTraveller is fast, tough, comfortable, and beautifully built. And when you're living on the road, that matters.
In terms of luggage, I'm using a mix of bikepacking bags and touring panniers. I've found this to be the most convenient setup possible, while reducing rattling on dirt roads and ensuring long-term durability.
The top tube bag is directly mounted to the frame, and so is the lower section of my custom frame bag.
Some may have spotted that I've ditched my handlebar bag. I found it to negatively affect my steering response. Since the weight swings ahead of the steering axis, it just makes my bike steer less precisely than I like.
The suspension stem also performs better without the added front weight, as it can react more quickly to fast, repetitive bumps in the road.
That said, I still really like having some weight on the fork, as it helps smooth out vibrations. These tail fin bags mount directly on the steering axis, which keeps the steering sharp.
If the KOGA WorldTraveller sounds like your dream bike, here's how to get one.
Standard models are available in regular or step-through frames at KOGA dealers in Europe and the UK, with prices starting at €2,500 for the derailleur versions and about €4,500 for the roll-off and belt drive builds. You can also fully customize your build like me via the KOGA website. You have a choice of gear systems, wheel sizes, fork type, paint color, and you can even add your name to the frame. Custom builds take about 8 weeks and can ship worldwide. The only exceptions right now are the US and Russia. If you're in Europe or the UK, ordering through a dealer will help you save on shipping. Outside those regions, you'll need to add $600 for shipping. But remember that you can remove the quite high European VAT and pay your local import taxes instead.
That wraps up my full breakdown of this one-of-a-kind machine. If you've got any further questions, feel free to ask below in the comments.